welcome to another wonderful podcast with Larry Namer. Wait a minute, Larry is not here. He's somewhere hanging out in the East Coast. I don't know what he's up to. John, do you know what he's up to? Is he having fun? What's going on here?
Yeah, so my dad is over in New Jersey hanging out on a yacht with my uncle and aunt and cousins.
Nice.
And hopefully, he's supposed to be back next Friday. So hopefully, we can convince him to virtually host with you next week.
And we're in this heat working,
Yeah.
doing the show while he's out in a yacht. So that's, hey, listen, I'm I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to continue doing the show. But anyway, John, how's it going? How are you doing?
Good, yeah. It was fun hosting with you last week, and I'm excited to host today. We have a great guest. As some of our followers know, we've you guys interviewed Bobby Chance, which is the mother of our guest
Yeah.
today, Richie Chance.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, can't wait. I know you work with them, right? Did you take a class with them?
Yeah, so Richie, I've taken several of his classes. I've taken acting classes with his mother, Bobby Chance, and yeah, I actually just did an acting class coached by Richie last month. It was fun.
Wow, I can't wait to talk to him. That sounds amazing. Maybe he can give me some tips about acting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll give him 5 minutes to make me an actor. See
Yeah,
how he's gonna do it. But
he's a great
you know,
actor, great acting coach.
wonderful. Looking forward to it. So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the news, John. I know that Michael K. Williams, great actor from The Wire, 12 Years a Slave, uh, he uh, he passed away. So that was a shocker actually because he's only in his early 50s. But man, that was really really sad, and I think a lot of people in the industry are feeling it right now. They're coming in to wish his family their condolences. But have you seen him in some of these projects, John?
Yeah, so I've seen a little bit of The Wire, which is great, and
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'd say it's very sad. One thing he struggled with drug abuse, and he possibly died from a drug overdose, is what they're saying. So you never want to hear that. It's unfortunate. I feel for his family and friends. That's a tough thing.
Yeah, it's really hard when you see people struggling for so many years, and in our business, it's so tough to begin with.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, and then you have your personal demons that you're dealing with, and apparently in this case, he was dealing with a lot of issues and demons that he had, from years back. So, yeah, yeah, very, very sad. And I've obviously some of his projects, I haven't seen everything he's done, but now I'm gonna go back and watch some of his other stuff. I mean, everyone I talk to, they're just so incredibly impressed by
yeah,
his talent. That is
yeah.
just amazing.
And
Yeah. So I just heard that Disney Plus is launching in South Korea, which honestly I thought that they would have been in South Korea already. I mean, they've been so aggressive with
hmm
rolling out and trying to get their subscription base, you know, uh, to really bring it up. I mean, look what's happening with, Black Widow and all
hmm
the problems that they're having, the lawsuits and stuff. And all of it is really geared towards
yeah,
upping their subscription base. So
yeah,
I am not really surprised that they're launching in South Korea. I mean all this drama that they're going through, but
hmm
like I was talking to Larry a couple weeks ago, I think everything for Disney right now is about adding more subscribers.
yeah.
It's funny. I went over the weekend. I went to the mall for the first time after like a year, like almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was with my kids, and my kids wanted to go to the Disney store, right?
hmm
So the first thing it said, like, store is closing.
Yeah.
They were giving like a huge sale, which was good for us. But my daughter noticed that they're closing the store. So I think, I have a feeling. I mean, this is, we have to ask Larry, but my personal feeling is that I think they're like trying to close down their retails and all of that
Mm-hmm.
because they want to focus more on, you know, Disney Plus
Yeah,
and
they
getting their subscribers base.
yeah, they announced that they're closing a lot of their retail stores. They're keeping some, but I saw this article recently. Also, Disney is announcing that they're going to close most of their stores by September 15th. After September
Yeah.
15th, they're only going to have about 25 stores left.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, because we saw that, and I thought, you know what, that's probably a smart move, especially with retail right now. I mean, they're obviously, it's pretty crowded because they had like I said, 40 or 50% off, store closing, and
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised. So like you, when I looked it up, I realized that they are closing. So
Yeah,
yeah, interesting move with Disney, what they're trying to do and how aggressive they've been. That's
yeah,
been really beyond me, to go after Scarlett Johansson, to do all these things. So yeah, I mean, Bob Chapek, the CEO, he's a pretty aggressive guy. So he wants to get results. He wants to go after, talent, which, we'll just see how that plays out. So
yeah.
anyway, let's do this. Let's take a short break and come back and talk about more news.
All
We'll
right.
be right back.
We're all fans of something or someone, investing our time and loyalty, but getting little in return. Well, it's about to change forever with FanVestor, a platform that lets you get in on celebrity businesses early on, buy shares of their new startups, support a charity and new product drops, and share once-in-a-lifetime experiences with them.
What's up, it's Amari Stoudemire here, and we're launching Masa with FanVestor to offer a limited edition, perks, products, and experience to my fans.
Here's how it works. Go to fanvestor.com. Choose an opportunity you want to get in on. Click here and there, and you're done. Go check your email for the investor's certificate. And don't forget to check back often for updates on your new business investment. It's official now. Celebrate your support with an experience. Go 10 rounds in the gym with Amare. Get a matching tattoo with Super Dope Q. Or get on FaceTime and hang out by the pool with DJ Khaled. After all, you're more than a fan now. You're a FanVestor.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, Johnny, we were talking, offline during commercial, and you mentioned that ABBA's coming back, and
Yeah,
I agree with you. I saw that too. So, what are your thoughts? I mean,
yeah.
for them, I guess I never thought that a reunion would be even possible,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know much about the history of the band, but I don't know what the problem was. I don't know if they didn't like each other or
Yeah.
whatever, but now they're back.
Yeah,
They're
so
back.
ABBA, they're coming back after it's been over 40 years, and they are coming back with a tour, and they're coming back with a studio album. The album is called Voyage, and I'm excited. I mean, I've seen ABBA cover bands before at different festivals, and I mean, their music is great. For me, it's
Hmm.
timeless. You can listen to their
Hmm.
music in any decade. I mean, you can correlate
Yeah.
it, pinpoint it to one specific decade, but the music is still good today. So
Yeah, I agree.
I might go see their tour. We'll see.
I agree. But isn't their tour like a virtual tour, I believe? I think their tour is not in person. I think what they're doing is they gotta do what they call a virtual tour. I don't know
Okay.
exactly how they're doing it, but I just saw them putting on like
Yeah,
these green suits or something. I mean, that's where I saw
you're
them.
right. You are so right. So I just read it. So there will not be a new tour, but instead a residency of sorts based in London, UK. It says a purpose-built 3,000-seat theater has been built in the city's Olympic Park and will be the host of a hologram Avatar performance. So the band will be
Yes.
holograms.
Interesting. That's what I was reading because I think they're doing something more innovative.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't doing the traditional touring. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be interesting. So that from the perspective of technology and especially some of these legends coming back, I'm wondering if, you know, these huge bands like the Rolling Stones or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, they might duplicate something like that, and just say, you know what, we'll just do that because they know they have an audience
Yeah.
that keeps coming back, right? So very interesting. I'm glad we talked about it because I read about it, and then when we
Mm-hmm.
talked about it during commercial, I was like, yeah, you're right. So yeah, and then a couple other things too. I mean, I was reading that Netflix did this huge partnership in India.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what Disney's doing, but Netflix is pretty smart because they are actually doing like a partnership or joint venture with Axel Entertainment, which is a huge entertainment company in India, and they make these, big movies. So I think it's pretty smart for Netflix to partner with somebody like that
Yeah.
because I think it makes sense. And look, Netflix has been in this game for a while, so they really know what they're doing. And then they have some really talented people in the ground in all these different places in these different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear them, partnering with someone, they've done their research, so I think it's gonna be amazing. So I can't wait to hear from that. But what I cannot wait even more is to see. I just saw the trailer for Matrix
Oh
4,
yeah. I
and that's amazing, man.
yeah.
Amazing.
It looks great, and it's just cool that they finally got the gang back together to do this, because everyone's been waiting for this for years. Then after the John Wick movie success, the fans got Keanu Reeves to actually think about doing this again, and now here we are with the trailer, and the movie's going to be released. I mean, pretty soon. I'm not sure when, but it's going to be a big event. People are going to go to the theaters. Maybe they're going to be online streaming. I don't know, but I would definitely go to the theater for this.
Were you a fan of the Matrix, the movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one obviously is the best, and then the
Yeah.
the number two and three didn't really have the same impact. Didn't have for me. They just didn't do it for me. But this one, number four, I feel like they've learned from their mistakes with two and three. I mean,
Yeah.
one, they filmed two and three back at the same time simultaneously. So they released
Okay.
them. I don't know if you remember, it was the first time I think any movie's done this. They released number two one weekend, and then the following weekend, they released number three. And I mean, that was pretty cool for me. And my friends were like, okay, we're going to go see number two, Matrix 2. And then a week later, we're already getting excited for the third. But it just disappointed the fans a little bit. So Matrix 4 has a lot on their shoulders to impress the fans this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we can get Larry to invite Keanu to come and hang out with us in the studio.
Yeah. Well, my dad right now he's lost in the Matrix. He's on some yacht in the Matrix.
Yes, he is. He is, and sometimes he's lost in the matrix even when he's here.
Ha ha.
But that's a different story. But yeah, that would be, I think it's going to be big. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be huge. So I'm really, really excited to actually see. That's a movie that I would love to go in the theater to watch.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a movie that I would want to just watch it on my, even big screen at home.
Yeah.
I think that's something like an experience that you want to have with all the sound effects
Mm-hmm.
and special effects and all of that stuff. I think it would be a great, great movie to watch in the movie theater. What do you think?
Yeah, well, for me, you go to the movie theater, you don't have distractions, you turn your phone off or put on silent. You're there for that length of time to watch the movie. If you watch a movie at home, it's very hard to get people to put their phones away. People take more bathroom breaks at home, and then you're eating, and then you wash the dishes, and you pause the movie. So for
Yeah.
me, movie theaters are way more better to watch a movie.
Well, we probably go to different movie theaters because the theater that I go to, people can't turn off their cell phones either. So I think I should go to your theater because,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, that can get pretty annoying when people have their phones on while they're watching a movie, and especially if they're sitting in front of you in that row. So
yeah,
anyway, good that we're talking about that. But as you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, we have an exciting guest today, Mr. Richie Chance, who's an
yeah.
actor. He's a coach. He's an all-around cool guy. So why don't we take a quick break and we'll be back with Richie Chance.
The reason why I created Hair Dope is because hair colors are popping everywhere. A lot of people, your favorite rappers, your favorite singers, your favorite artists, whoever, they're dyeing their hair, they're doing things like that, and this is a world full of color. So I feel like I want to feel like everyone can express themselves through my color. Well, to me, the importance of entrepreneurship is having a career that's longevity. You know, a lot of people jump into the game and into careers of being an entrepreneur and not having longevity in what they're doing. So that's what I really feel like. You have to put your all into it. It has to be from the heart. You have to have longevity. You have to be able to stay in and stay active.
So welcome back, guys, and I'm really excited to have Richie Chance today on the show. Very excited. Richie, first of all, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. And first, I want to ask you. I want to take you back a little bit, and I think that's something that we all want to know. How early on did you know that you wanted to be an actor or you want to be involved in Hollywood? And what led you to become an actor?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here. This is really cool. And it's a great question. I think every little kid is an actor. Every little kid plays in their imagination and lives in a space of constant creativity. And once I learned that you don't have to grow up to become an actor, you can be an actor at any age, I was hooked. And I got extremely lucky because I was born into a family of actors. Both my parents were actors. My sister was an actress. So I've always been very aware of how fortunate I am to have been born into this world and life the way I have, because it's the most fun thing there is to do. And I have a 3-year-old daughter now. She is very much so the actress. So to answer your question, I think I've always had the freedom, which is what I'm so grateful for my parents for, to play and to use my imagination. And the moment I learned you could do it for a living, I figured, what else is there?
So you grew up in a family that was in the business already. Do you think that's was that to your advantage, do you think, or this is something that maybe holds you back?
Well, it's a good question. Growing up in a show business family definitely has its benefits if you want to be in show business. You can always leverage the relationships that your parents or families made before you were even around to give yourself more access to opportunities. But like you said, it could also hinder some things. You can grow up in the shadow of your family. For example, my dad has more IMDb credits than I do, and he has no idea what IMDb is. He's never heard of it before, and he's he's on. So, I think it's all, it's all relative, and it depends on how you take it. Some people don't use their parents or their family's advantage. I've had to audition for projects for my parents before because they wanted the best actor instead of just their favorite one. um,
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense, and for me it was like the opposite, to come up to be a musician, no one really played an instrument in my family. And so it was like the complete opposite. I mean, they loved music, but no one really was a professional musician. So for me to come up, to becoming, a professional musician, then eventually winning a Grammy Award, it was one of those things that the family was like, at first was like, what are you doing? What, because my dad worked for United Nations in New York, and it was just like all politics and things like that. And for their son to become a musician was like a real, um, it was a shock to them. But was your family surprised, or just they knew that you're going to go into this profession, or they encouraged you, or they encouraged you to do whatever you wanted to do?
well, I remember that my mom tells a story. The earliest opportunity I ever had to be a serious actor, I was 5 years old. And my mom brought a group of kids over to Disney to audition for a project because they knew that my mom had this acting class. And, we were all over there, and the casting directors and producers, they saw all of my mom's talent. And they were like, you know what, Bobby, thank you so much. We're going to pass. Great kids, but we're going to pass. And they looked down at me. I was coloring on their carpet in the lobby at Disney, by the way, with a marker.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Total freedom. I'm telling you, I had a very unique childhood, all right? And the guy was like, I don't know who that kid is, but we want him. Is this one of your kids? She's like, that's my son. And she looked at me and she goes, Richie, do you want to be an actor? And I looked up at her. I said, not yet, Mom. No pressure, no forcefulness ever. It was the other way around. I would have to work my butt off doing chores and my homework in order to be allowed to go up to acting class. Like I would do, like they couldn't get me to do anything. I was so free unless they used acting as an incentive. And that really was my guidance growing up.
So it sounds like you really just watching your parents work, going on set with them, really gave you a lot of motivation. And also it seems like you were excited to be a part of it, because sometimes, when you grow up in a, in a business that your parents are in, you're like, I hear kids that are saying both of my parents are doctors. I don't want to be a doctor. I grew up, around medical people, hospitals, all of that. I don't want to do that. So it's interesting that you sort of wanted to follow what they were doing on their footsteps.
Yeah, and
right.
It's a great point. Like you typically rebel against your parents.
Yeah.
And for me, my parents were a part of something that was so cool and so already very rebellious for the way society looked. Your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
Being an actor or a musician is a very out of the box, low guaranteed type of occupation. But my family had an acting school, so they had an opportunity, a safe space for people from all over the world to come get better at this craft. And I grew up watching some of the greatest actors on the planet go across our stage and do scenes and improv. And I got to go up there with, like, Anthony Hopkins came up to our studio, and he didn't want to go on stage and talk. We convinced him to give advice to the actors. And while he was up there, my mom said, hey, would you like to do an improv? So I go sprinting up to the stage just in case he said yes.
Wow.
And he finally said yes. And I found myself in a position where I'm listening to the directions to do an improvisation with Sir Anthony Hopkins.
That's amazing.
Yes, I'm very excited and always have been about this profession, because you can be any other profession at this one occupation. Like I could do the role, for example. I'd have to change my haircut, of a Grammy award-winning musician named Omar.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah, you will.
I could do the role.
But that's what makes it exciting, right? As an actor, you sort of go into, so how much of, when you take on a role, how much of it is Richie and how much of it is the character? If you're playing me or whoever, how much of yourself is in that role? How much do you bring with you of yourself?
It's a deep question. Some actors, they try to bring their whole self to the role. Some actors try to eliminate themselves so the role can use their instrument. That might sound familiar to people that have studied with us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I look at it very practically. Like, for example, how much of yourself are you when you wake up in the morning? And I like to think of it that way, because if you have a crazy dream, you might wake up in the morning thinking that half your body got chopped off by a shark,
Right.
or you might wake up thinking that you were being chased by someone. And then it takes a moment for you to go, wait a second. Oh no, this is who I am. Okay. Well, I've always felt a lot of pliability with my identity, because as a profession, it's my job to make my body, my voice, and my face, and my spirit, my personality, my interests, my preferences, my emotional availability, all volunteered and available for the written character. So the character can live their life with all of my instrument. So to answer your question, I would say I give 1,000% of everything I am to the role, and I try not to interfere at all.
Interesting. Wow, that's because just recently, believe it or not, and this is before I even found out you're coming on the show. This past weekend, I was watching something on YouTube where Will Smith, I don't know if you've seen this, where he talks, he did a very candid interview, and it's brand new. It just came out a couple of weeks ago, where he describes acting. He describes his process. And he was talking about method acting at some point where he was kind of going to the character deep. But now he said, as he's getting older, he kind of makes it look like he's doing something, but he's got these tools that he pulls, right, from his own experiences, right? So that's all technique, right, Richie? I mean, to learn to be able to act a certain way, you basically put an actor in a situation, right? So if you're making a film, you're putting someone in a situation, right? You just let them go. They know the lines. And so how much of it is technique where you have to pull in, where you have to teach me how to do this or that? And how much of it is from your own personal experiences?
Great question. I think there's a huge difference between contextual understanding and life experiences that are relevant. For example, if you had to do the role of someone who is heavily addicted to drugs and you've never done a single drug before in your entire life, okay, you would be completely out of your realm. You have no idea what it was like. You had no context because you've never had those life experiences.
Right.
So you have two options. One, you start doing really heavy drugs to learn what it's like. In my opinion, that's a very unsustainable option.
Yeah, that's not, I was going to say, give me something else.
Option two is you open up all of the empathy that you're capable of, and you learn as much as possible about what that's like from as many different perspectives as you can without any judgment. So that way you have an understanding in your mind of what it's like. Because if you're doing the role of someone who's a drug addict, but you've never done drugs before, you have to keep in mind that that person who's a drug addict, there was also a time when they had never done drugs before. I work with a lot of actors who, as a coach, who are portraying a character who's based on a real person who's there on set. And they're standing there saying, hey, I cried way harder than that when my dad died. And that actor might be like, well, I've never lost anybody. I don't know what it's like to experience pain and suffering and grievance. So you don't have to know what it's like. You just have to be compassionate enough to put yourself through that experience in the same manner that it went through for the person who did it live. And that takes really a strong listening sense and the ability to be compassionate and sympathetic to go through what other people have gone through.
But it's that emotion, right? So if you're playing someone who is a drug addict, but they are very sad because something happened, because they lost their family. So the addiction is only sort of the backstory, right? The real story is that they lost their family, right? So his wife left him, for instance, right? So me playing that role, since I really haven't done any drugs, I could pull in from another experience, or a girlfriend left me or something like that in the past, correct? I mean, but what you see is the same thing, right?
No, I'm trained to see this clearly. I'm pitch perfect when it comes to emotions. Okay. If you're dealing with something different, if you're remembering someone that left you, I'm going to watch Omar. But if you're letting the role experience when someone leaves them, I'm going to watch them. There's only one person that you can be. So if you're using your own personal experiences under the guise of a different identity, it's very confusing and looks very scattered. And to be frank, you look like you're full of shit because you're two different people.
Interesting.
So whenever people use substitution, it's a very common and very popular acting technique. I like to equate it contextually with using a picture of your ex-girlfriend while making love to your wife. And saying to your wife, hey, do you mind if I call you her name? Because it's the only way I can actually feel any pleasure, is to use something from my own personal experience, because what's happening to me now isn't enough. And that's where I get really, it's so cringy and awkward to me when an actor uses their own personal experiences, because it completely negates what the role is experiencing at the moment. So for example, if the role is sad because of some, like, let's get out of the whole drug habit thing. Let's say it's a good thing, okay? Let's say you win the lottery and you start crying tears of joy. And they say action. Well, you, the actor, have never experienced that type of success, that type of emotional ride, explosion, like a rocket taking off. So you using something in your life, no matter what you use, won't have the same amount of intensity as what the role needs you to have. So rather than using something from your own repertoire, it's more jazz, it's more improvisation. It's more you allowing a flow state to initiate in order for your role to use parts of yourself that you didn't even know you had.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I heard Will Smith talking about. Because he was saying that in the beginning, he would submerge himself into the role. I mean, he would stay in that character, he would talk as the character, but he was saying as he got older, he's in his 50s now, he just turned 50 or whatever. He's saying that now he goes back to his experiences, but when you and I watch him perform, we think he's really sad or he's happy or whatever, but in his own mind, he's pulling on a personal experience, right? So, yeah, I was just fascinated by that. I think that's, it's people don't realize how difficult it is to really do a great performance.
Yeah, for example,
for actors.
Here's a great example. Last night, we were doing a workshop online through Zoom like this, and 2 actors of the 6 that were in the workshop, they had breakthroughs. They're sitting there in their bedrooms like us, and they've got their computer in front of them. We were doing a scene from Good Will Hunting with Robin Williams and Matt Damon, where he says, it's not your fault, Will. It's not your fault. And it's a scene about domestic abuse, being abused by your foster parents. Neither of these actors have ever experienced something that traumatic before. So when I gave them this scene, they looked at me like, how do I do this?
Wow.
And my answer, very frankly, was you cannot. You're not capable of doing this. But your body is, your brain, the meat that makes you up, the ability to cry, the ability to laugh, the ability to understand these very complex situations, like being in a therapist's office and talking about something that you've never talked about before. And even though neither of these actors have ever experienced that, both of them had this out-of-body experience last night where the will took over their bodies and had that situation unfold in real time. And to me, it's like magic. And to the actors, it's like magic. But to the audience, it looks like a documentary. Think, well, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. Neither of the actors have ever been through that before. But you would never know it if you saw their performance. I got goosebumps just now just talking.
That's amazing. That's really, so I know Jonny here, he took your class, and I remember he was excited. We talked, I think I saw him like the day after we were doing the show, and he's obviously manages the studio, and we were talking, and he was saying, so Jonny, what was your experience like when you were with Richie doing his class? You guys were doing improvisation, right, Jonny?
Yeah, so we did an improv class, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I've done classes with Richie and with Richie's mom, Bobby, since early 2019 or like late 2019. And the classes are a lot of fun. The specific class was a lot of improv stuff, a lot of improv situations, and it just felt good to be back acting again. So I can't wait for the next class.
Wow. Richie, that's coming from Jonny, that's a nice compliment. I guess you have a pretty good class going, and that sounds amazing. I wanna, without giving away too much, and I want to talk to you offline some other time, but I might be in a situation where I'm doing doing a TV show where I'm gonna be in a sense playing myself. Okay. It's almost like Curb Your Enthusiasm when you see Larry David, right? So it's about a guy who's himself. Now, how much of Larry David is Larry David on that show? And how much of Omar is Omar on a TV show? And how does that work? Maybe you can give me some advice.
I mean, you know yourself the best, okay? And people who know you really well, if you were to ask those people to describe Omar in just a few words, it would overlap. Everyone has a pretty similar opinion of you who knows you really well.
Yeah.
And I think those are the qualities that if I were writing a show about you and I was trying to find another actor who could portray you, I would need to find someone who could show those qualities. Larry David isn't getting into these situations ever. Okay, he's a really smart person. He can avoid trouble.
Right.
But what's more funny than trouble? So he writes these scenarios where now he can be bigger than himself a little bit because he's in a scenario that's bigger than himself. Like, for example, do you remember Bobcat Goldthwait, the comedian / actor / director?
Of course.
He doesn't talk like that. If you've ever heard Gilbert Gottfried's real voice, you wouldn't even know who he was. Wow. So there's an on-camera persona, and then there's how they are when they're at home, If the show is about your bigger-than-life musician persona, then you better bring it every time they start rolling the camera. If you just relax like you're at home in your pajamas, no one's going to recognize you. But if you've got one speed and you're always this bigger-than-life character, you've got no choice. It's going to be like Dennis Rodman is Dennis Rodman no matter where he goes. Okay? So in regards to playing yourself on TV, it depends on if you've got a TV personality or if you've got one speed everywhere you are.
But it's a TV. So how would you describe Larry David? Would he be a TV personality?
Yeah, definitely. Who you see on that show is him when he's on, when he is activated. When they stop rolling, he just calms down. Everything is no longer escalated, and he doesn't get into trouble ever because, like I said, he's a very clever guy. So he doesn't have to get into these out of the world scenarios.
I mean, not the scenario, but even being himself, the way he is, the way his mannerisms, right? So that may not be the Larry David that we see off camera, right?
It's very boring, man. I'm telling you, when you meet these celebrities and they're not on TV, they have the same mannerisms that you and I have.
So if I came to you and I say I'm doing a TV show, I'm being myself. Can you help me? Because I'm not an actor. I'm basically myself.
I think
You know?
75% of the people that study with me aren't actors and never even want to be actors.
Yeah.
I've worked with colonels in the army and people that get out of the Navy. I've worked with lawyers who have a fantastically successful practice and their names are on buildings, and doctors who have had whole wings of hospitals named after them.
Interesting.
And they're like, you know what? I can't give a speech to my peers because my knees buckle. Like the colonel in the army was afraid to speak in front of a platoon of 7,500 people that they could send into war, but they couldn't speak in front of them. So if you're doing a show where you get to play yourself, what I would want to do is I'd want to highlight some of the moments in the show that are really going to show your personality. And I would want to just talk about those moments with you. But then I'd put you through these situational improvisations that teach you a lot about yourself and help you to strengthen the parts of yourself that you might not be too comfortable with, specifically your vulnerabilities. Because that's what other people bond to. And if you want your show to be successful, people need to give it their attention. The easiest way to get their attention is to give them something they can relate to. And the most relative emotion people feel is vulnerability. So that's what we would work on.
Very, very interesting. Take me back a little bit, how you went from being, obviously you've done, I just looked at your IMDb, you've done you've done so many movies. I mean, how did you get into coaching? Because I know we mentioned Jonny took your coaching class. I know, we had your mom on the show. She's fantastic. Obviously, she's one of the best in the industry. But I'm talking about you. Was it something that you thought, okay, yeah, that's what my parents or my mom is doing, I'm going to get into it? Or was it you genuinely said, I'm going to start helping people kind of do their thing? I mean, what led you to acting coaching?
I never wanted to be an acting coach. That was never my plan. It didn't even register on my radar that was something I might do in my life. And I'll never forget the first day I coached acting. It was my mom's Saturday class, which is an all emotional workshop. It's the one that I just replicated that Jonny was talking about that we had at the Beverly Center. It's a very emotional workshop. It's 4.5 hours of extremely intense improvisations. And I studied my mother. I studied her since I was a little kid. And she saw that I was mouthing the words that she was telling the actors. You brought up Will Smith. On Will Smith's first few episodes of The Fresh Prince, he learned everybody's dialogue in the whole script because he was so enthusiastic. So you could watch his mouth mouthing other people's lines during the first few episodes, and they had to get him to cut it out because he was so excited. Well, my mom saw that I was doing that on a Saturday, and she said, all right, you know what, everybody, I'm going to go. Richie's taking over. I was 17 years old. And I had tears in my eyes, from the previous improv. And I was like, what? No, I want to keep doing these. I don't want you to go. But she left and I finished the session, and my mom got a lot of phone calls from people saying, hey, when is Richie going to do another session? So I started a kids class because our whole studio started as a kids class. And a bunch of kids were coming in, and they were booking jobs. Their agents were sending their adult clients to my kids class. So I had to start an adult session. And by the time I was 18, I was doing 3 sessions a week. That went on 50 weeks a year for the last almost 20 years.
Wow.
And I never meant to do it. It was never something that I had planned on doing. It was working so well. Actors were getting a career. And it's so fulfilling to meet someone who has either never thought about it before or reached some type of dead end. And I started coaching my peers, most people who were older than me at that point. Flash forward now 20 years, there's people who are studying with me again through Zoom who have raised children who are in college. And now they're coming back to their lives.
That's amazing. You mentioned Zoom. How has the pandemic, especially the last year or so, year and a half, has affected, everything, your business and the way you're conducting your classes. Because to me, when you talk about an acting class, and that's what I was asking Jonny. I said, Jonny, were you there in person? He goes, yeah, because that's what makes it special for me. I can't even imagine doing an acting class over Zoom. I mean, obviously, you and I are having a nice conversation. That's one thing. But to do it, for me, it was all about this, human interaction. That's what acting is all about, right? It's interacting, listening, playing off what the other person is doing. So, how has that changed your world, and how are people responding, and how is that going?
Starting about 20 years ago, I would get actors to call me right before their audition, and we would do a quick session for 30 minutes or an hour in their car while right before they went into their audition. And this is just over the phone. This is, and then Skype came out, and I started doing a lot of stuff with people on Skype all around the world, because a lot of our actors come from overseas, their visas expire, they don't want to stop working. And then the pandemic hit, and in March of last year, our studio shut down for the first time since we opened. And that was devastating. We've had over 150,000 people sign in on our sign-in sheets since then. And a lot of them rely on us as almost like a poor man's therapy, because they could come to our studio and get all of it out, express whatever it is that has been building up inside of them. So when we shut down because of the pandemic, about 3 weeks went by of people sending us emails, text messages, phone calls saying, I can't afford therapy. You need to open back up. Or
Wow.
What should I do? When are you going to open? So we decided to go look at some of these online platforms. You're a skeptic. I was the biggest skeptic. My wife makes fun of me now because of how much I shot down Zoom. It's like, no way will it ever work. If you're not in the room with the person, you'll never be able to connect and exchange emotions on a deep level. Here I am now, over 350 Zoom workshops later, eating my shoes. My feet are so, last night, these two breakthroughs, these actors had full-blown ugly cries.
Oh my God.
They broke through cobwebs that were 20 years old through Zoom. And
Wow.
I never thought it would be possible until we started practicing. So I did 150 a la carte Zoom workshops as a beta test to figure out how to do this, man, because how do you, like you said before, how do you have that? How do you listen carefully enough to have that real-time exchange? So now I've got people in Moscow working with people in South Korea, people in Australia doing scenes with people in New Jersey, okay, in real time, having such an emotional connection that all the other people in the Zoom call are crying just as hard as the two people doing the scene. Again, man, with the goosebumps. And I can't make this stuff up. I was the biggest skeptic, and now I'm the biggest believer, because the feedback has been fantastic. Everyone I've talked to the more they hated on it, the more they're an advocate. And now they're recruiting all their other friends, to show them just how amazing the work is that we're able to do.
I mean, that's really, really nice to hear. I mean, for us, for musicians, performing is everything. Concerts is what we do, and that obviously was, completely cut off. And we're still struggling to find a way to do, I do my thing every week. I do a performance. I sit in front of the grand piano or whatever, and I do something on YouTube. So at least I'm putting stuff out, but at the same time, it's really not the same. But I'm glad that you found a way, a really effective way to connect with the students. And, on this show, we have a lot of people that are watching and that are from all over the world that want to get into the entertainment business, that want to be actors, that aspire to, come to Hollywood and quote unquote make it. Since you grew up in and a really showbiz family, since you were a kid. And, what are some of the pitfalls that you see? And then after that, what would be some of the advice you would give to people? Because that's what I get all the time. Man, I'm moving to Hollywood. I'm in Iowa. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna pick up, my stuff. I'm gonna put it in a van and drive to Los Angeles. And what are your thoughts on that nowadays for people when they talk? And what advice would you give them?
The world has completely changed, and the barrier of entry before was coming to Hollywood. There's this proverbial bus stop on Hollywood Boulevard called the Bus Stop of Dreams, where people would get off and they'd look around and go, okay, how do I become famous?
Mm.
And it's a very difficult uphill battle. I'd say if there was one quality that is the most successful quality people can have, it would be persistence. If you are persistent, you will succeed. It is only a matter of time. I've never met a persistent artist who failed. The only reason why I see people fail is because they gave up, and never for any other reason. They ran out of patience. And some of them, it could take 5 days. Their first audition might be their big break. And I've seen it many times, believe it or not. People win the lottery every single time there's a lottery. But what I've seen most of is people run out of money. People run out of time, and then they go home because it's a very expensive place. And a lot of people are here just to take your money. They didn't come here to find gold. They came here to sell shovels. So it's very easy to come out here and buy the nicest shovel and not find any gold. So I would say find yourself a place where you can grow when you get here, but have a sustainable plan. A lot of people will sell their car or sell their blood and save up enough money to come here for a month. It might not happen within a month. You need to give yourself enough time to get strong and to learn what these waters are like so you can swim through them much better, because these waves will drown you. Same with the music business. You can be the most talented musician on earth, but if you're not protected in the music business, these waves will chew you up and spit you out. But if you become educated and you learn and you have an open mind and you use the community that's around you by learning from other people who have come before you, then you can surf these waves and have the most fun there is. Like, even without a crowd, when you perform in front of your computer, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, every human being is an artist. And the ones that we call artists are the ones that have worked on the skill sets to express their creativity. And that's the only difference. So if you want to be a successful musician, you have to acquire the skill sets, obviously, learn where all the notes are, and once you know where they are, you get to express your creativity through those notes by composing, by improvising, by creating something that didn't exist before. And when you do that, you grow as a person, and everyone who listens to your art, they grow as a person. And it's this feedback loop that we still have even through Zoom. So persistence is the quality that you need to be successful, and sustainability is something that will completely mess up all your plans.
Yeah, you made a really, really good, point by saying persistence. Now, I tell people I came to Los Angeles in 1993. I was on stage at the Staples Center in 2013 to accept an award for Best New Age Album, a Grammy. So that took 20 years. But I would add one more thing to what you just said. And that is the two things that you mentioned is perfect. The other thing is you got to be able to build relationships with people. That is the key. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. That at the end of the day, everything we do is we do it with people that we trust and people that are friends of ours. No one will, if somebody just came up to me and said, hey, I played this and I want to be in your band, It's like, dude, I don't know you. You know, it's building that relationship. What I found, you're absolutely right. You got to be able to have a way to sustain yourself. That's in, and you got to be persistent. You cannot give up. If you believe in your talent, you got to be realistic. You cannot suck at something and say, I'm going to be the greatest violinist in the world, because you won't, you know. But if you work hard, you know, I started when I was 5 or 6 years old playing the piano. You know, I went to a music conservatory, all that good stuff, right? So when I came to LA, I actually got a job. And the funny thing is, I was a travel agent and I worked in the same building as my friend Larry. Larry and I worked in the same building. I didn't know. So E Entertainment was the same building that I was working at the travel agency, right? So we were in the same building, but we just didn't know each other, right? But the point that I'm making is, slowly I started meeting people and I made friends. So anybody that you talk to right now that are doing legitimate projects, Richie, they're all only working with people that they know. You know, my friend Richard, who's an Oscar winner, right? He won an Oscar for sound design. He's a film director. When he made his feature film, his first feature film, he called me to score his movie, right? Not because I'm the next Hans Zimmer. It's just because, okay, well, I know this guy, he's reliable, he's cool. I can call on him and he'll do it. Same thing, you know, like when I'm thinking about, you know, I'm meeting you, you're a really cool guy, and hopefully we do some stuff offline. And then when the time comes for me to do something, I call you, right? Why? Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is, you know, the fact, and that's what you said, it makes so much sense, because that's what they asked Harrison Ford about success. And he says, well, I was the last guy standing. So, you know, everyone else quit.
Yeah.
His whole group, people that he was acting with and all that. You know, I think he was a carpenter, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was a carpenter and doing stuff. So all those guys, there was a group of them, right? They were all wanted to be an actor. They all had day jobs, but then they got married, they went on with their lives, and that was it. And Harrison was the last guy who just kept going and going and going. And finally, you know, he made it. So it's exactly the point you were making earlier.
Yeah,
right?
and you brought up a wonderful point too. The community as well. I mentioned community, and just to dive a little bit deeper into that, you can't be an actor by yourself. Okay, you're going to be in other people's movies, other people's TV shows, and there's a big team that make those TV shows and movies. So you join that big team. But that's an external team that you join. You also have your internal team, starting with your support system, your family, your base foundation, the people that have to live with you while you come home in character, you know, like Bill the Butcher, Daniel Day-Lewis, when he did Gangs of New York, he was Bill the Butcher for 6 months. His wife, kids had to call him Bill. So there's your foundational support. Okay?
That's not going to work with my wife, dude.
You know what I mean, bro? Like, your support is, like, I wouldn't be where I am right now without my wife. Holy shit. This operation would look much different. But then there's the next level of your internal team. There's your representation, your agent, your manager, your lawyer, your publicist, your acting coach, your physical trainer, your vocal coach, your dance choreographer, your stunt train. Like, there's a huge team of people on the inside of your circle, you know. And then when you're on the outside and you're working with this team of people on set, you can have hundreds of people on set trying to make you look better. So there's a huge community, and not only that, but like in our workshop online, you know, I told you I have people from all over the world in these Zoom calls, these Zoom workshops. They now have each other. So if they ever have an audition and they need somebody to rehearse with, they can go into the private Facebook group that we offer to this program and reach out to the other 50, 60 actors that they know have been through this specific program and be like, hey guys, I have an audition. Who wants to help me learn these 9 pages of dialogue? And they're so loving and supportive that they jump in there. And they're like, yeah, here's my time slots. When do you want to rehearse? And they jump on here through Zoom and they rehearse. And it takes a huge team both on the inside and outside.
Yeah, and another point I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on. I actually had a little discussion with I don't know if you know who Lakeith Stanfield is. He's an Oscar-nominated actor for Messiah.
Hmm.
He played a Black Panther, um, and this guy's an incredible actor, and came from a very humble beginning from Riverside, and this past year he got nominated for an Oscar. And one of the things that we were talking on Clubhouse actually is that you can create your own projects nowadays, right, Richie? I mean, the thing is, 20 years ago, even when I started, in the music business, we actually had to record albums and put them out there. We needed a distributor, and it was just very complicated. It was before iTunes, before YouTube. So as an artist, you had no way to kind of do your own thing. You were always in the mercy of the gatekeepers, right? So for me, in order to release my very first album, actually needed a record label because that was the only way for my stuff to be in music stores. If it was at Barnes and Noble, or it was at back then we had Tower Records and all those places, right? So you couldn't do that as an individual. You had to go through a company to do that. So I think one of the things that I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on is how much you encourage your actors and fellow performers to, we talked about coming to Hollywood, and we talked about, the bus stop on Hollywood Boulevard, but how much of that do you really need? If I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm creating a YouTube show that resonates, with a lot of people, how is that different? I mean, and do you encourage that? And you think that's a good idea for people to do?
Yeah, when the world changed due to the pandemic, it restricted that barrier of entry of being in Hollywood physically. That was gone.
Yeah.
Now
right.
You don't need to be here anymore. Like you said, distribution channels have become mainstream. Here, I'll age myself too. In order for you to get your album into Sam Goody, okay?
Okay. There you go. There you go.
I'm not that young. In order to get your album into Sam Goody, you would have to go there, and you can't. It's not up to you. Now, all you have to do is post one song on TikTok. You go viral, and now all the record labels are coming to you because they see your audience that you were able to create on your own. So I think because of social media, it's given actors or artists, for that matter, an opportunity to build their own audience. That's always going to be helpful, because when you have your own audience, it shows the decision makers that you were able to do this without them. And like I said, I have actors studying with me from all over the world. There's also agencies who have opened up their gates and have now represented actors internationally, because you can audition for a lot of projects without ever leaving your home. So once you book the project, then you could buy the plane ticket and go out there and be in the project. And what that has done has now made it so I do international workshops. I travel all over the world and I do in-person workshops. And that was really my only way to bring Hollywood around the world. And now all of that has changed.
They come to you, right?
Yeah, from all over the world, several times a week now, until something happens where they need to be here physically. And that means that you can audition for projects now remotely from all over the world. And then when they're like, yes, we'd love to work with you, here's the contract, here's how much you'll make. And then you look at hotels and you go, well, I'd still be profitable after I fly myself out there and put myself up in a room. Now production doesn't need to pay for you to stay there. It's called a local hire in the business. If I made a movie in Los Angeles, I don't want to pay to have people travel to Los Angeles to be in the movie when I could find people in Los Angeles to be in the movie. But if I were to shoot a movie in Romania, that might be kind of difficult to find a bunch of local hires. So I have to fly people to Romania. That's a very expensive process before we've made a decision to hire somebody. But now that we can make that decision remotely, it's a conservation of budget. I also produce. I wear a lot of hats. And about 3 years ago, I got hired to be the head of productions for a film company in Beverly Hills. And because of our relationship, they ended up promoting me and hiring me to be the head of development for a film finance company that puts the money up for the movies that the production company makes. And we have a range of $12 to $75 million per budget movie. We have 31 movies optioned. 7 of them are developed. 3 of them are fully funded with full names attached. And then COVID hit and it completely stopped all the productions. But not to get too off track or be too tangential, we could have a whole conversation about that side of it also another time.
Yeah.
It's even more important now that actors get their at-home self-tape setups completely on lock, because now for all of our movies, I'm starting to receive submission tapes from people in New Zealand and Madagascar and Tonga and the Democratic Republic of Congo, like places that we'd never have contact with. So the world has become extremely small, and anyone on earth can become an actor. Anyone, no matter where they are, all they need is Zoom to start their training.
Wow. That's wonderful, Richie. You know what? Obviously we can go on and talk about this for hours and hours, but first of all, I want to really tell you how much I enjoyed speaking with you. You're, obviously very talented, and Jonny can testify that he's been in your class and he's enjoyed it very much. And I could see why people are drawn to you and your class. And of course, a lot of respect for your mom. I met her personally. I met her several times before at industry events, but I actually got to sit down and speak with her one-on-one. Larry and I, she came on the same podcast. She actually was gracious enough to come into the studio, so we got to see her in person. It was a lot of fun. And would love to continue our conversation. I want to come to you, maybe work with you a little bit on some of these things that I'm doing, but tell our audience how they can find you. And if somebody wanted to take an acting class with you, what would be the best way? They don't necessarily have to be in Hollywood. We already talked about it, but can you tell us how people can do that?
Definitely. You can find everything of ours on our Instagram. Our handle is at Richie's Actors Workshop. It's RichiesActorsWorkshop. And our website is RichieChance.com, spelled just like my name, RichieChance. So we have all of our information on the website about the workshops, the programs that we offer, the one-on-one consultations that we do. Like, for example, Omar, you don't need to come into the program to study acting because you're doing a role in a project that you're probably producing or co-producing, and you're playing yourself. So I would work with you privately in one-on-one sessions. All of that is available on RichieChance.com. And then I go live on Fridays with actors, casting directors, a bunch of my friends, a bunch of people that are pretty successful in this business. And we go live on Instagram every Friday around noon. All the videos are up there on the IGTV. You can, see what we do and what we talk about. This last one, I just went live with an actor named Bo Knapp, who's been studying with me since the kids class that we talked about. And he's worked with everyone now. He just did a movie with Nicole Kidman, and he's done work with Kurt Russell. And this kid is blown up kid. He has 4 kids now himself, but yeah. So
crazy.
Instagram,
that's amazing,
and our website are the 2 best ways to find us.
Well, Jonny, we're going to put it in the description down below, right? So we're going to make sure that it's all available for people. And if you have any comments for Richie, please put it down in the comments. And if we try, we go in there and answer most of it. If we can, we will reach out to Richie, if there's something, a comment. And I know, Richie, you will be checking in with us too. If there's any comments or anything, we would love to hear from everybody. But Richie Chance, I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Omar, thank you so much, brother. Jonny, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for giving me the chance to share this info with everybody.
And I also want to thank Jonny as well, helping out on the show today. beginning with the news. And, obviously Jonny was the one that connecting us to bring you on the show. So thank you, Jonny, for doing that. Very, very good conversation. Really appreciate that. And guys, thank you again for watching the show, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.